Cleveland Guardians are officially in full off-season mode. And the first step of the offseason is figuring out who is going to be on your 40-man roster before you can start making moves. We'll tell you who has to be protected and who we think the Guardians will protect and names to know.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into another episode of Locked On Guardians. It is our favorite half hour of the day. We hope it's yours as well, because for the next 30 minutes, we're talking about your Cleveland Guardians, the only daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians covering the team from the majors, the minors, the draft, and everything in between. Proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if you're new here, my name is Justin Lada, one of your two co-hosts. Proud to say I've been here with my friend and co-host Jeff Ellis for the last 3 years. And I spent 18 years and counting covering the Guardians minor league system, preparing for many a Rule 5 draft.
And I am, as you mentioned, Jeff Ellis, one of your two co-hosts here. One of the first people Locked On went to when it was time to talk about baseball. Before that, I was a national writer at Scout and 24/7 focused on prospects and the draft. I want to thank you for making today's episode your first listen today and every day, wherever it is you podcast. Big shout out to our everydayers out there. I'll give a shout out to one of my high school buddies, Joe, who texted me about laughing at some of my recent ad reads. So I hope everyone's enjoying all parts of the show. Ad reads, content, all of it. We're here for you, and we appreciate you being here with us.
We absolutely do. I got a lot to talk about today's show, and should be a fun one for everybody because we're talking about the 40-man roster heading into the offseason and who needs to be protected from the Rule 5 draft, all that fun stuff. So we'll talk about who's on the bubble, what names to know, who must be added, and we'll give you a quick rundown on the Guardians' 40-man situation in today's show. Before we get started, today's episode of Locked On Guardians brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Well, we know who is on the 40-man now. We gave you a rundown on Monday of who is going to come off that. So let's, Jeff, real quick, set everybody up and give everybody an idea of how many spots they have to play with, because that's always the key here when you're assessing and making those last-minute decisions. And to be clear, the Guardians don't need to set this roster until like the end of November, but we're in off-season mode, so we're talking 40-man roster. So what's the roster count we think we're going to be at for sure?
Well, okay, let's we put our musts. If you combine the musts and the likelies, that puts us at 31. If we assume half of the maybes, that's about 33. And it might be all 4 maybes because that's 35. Because again, shout out to Tony Lastoria. I don't know if he listens or not, but he's who gave me my start in writing. And he would always talk about roster fodder. That was a thing that because they're going to need, if you add to 40 and you add everybody, the problem then is, let's just give this rundown for people to understand like why it works this way. Because when the Rule 5 comes, if there's a guy who's not on your 40-man, he has to stay with another team the whole season on their 25-man. You're saying that this guy is so good and the other team has it so wrong. But if let's say we add Milan Tolentino to the 40-man, and then we have to add back in Hedges after they re-sign him, and you take Tolentino off, then anyone can claim him and stash him on their 40-man. So then you're making it easier. So you have to have this degree of roster fodder there. So you have guys where like, listen, Noel's going to be between a rock and a hard place. Rodriguez the same. They're redundant players. Let's be real honest. They're redundant players. So if you have them both on the roster now, you can see what you have with them. Try to get them a little more reps. Or when you sign someone, they're a guy you can cut, and you're not worried if they get claimed because you have that redundancy in place. So I think we're probably looking at about 35. I would bet 5 guys come off. You add in our 4 maybes. That's 35 exactly. So with the guys coming off and with them having to add Andrew Walters back on, Zach Kent, Matt Crook, Dom Nunez, Will Wilson, and Nolan Jones were the players we thought are all on the way out. And I know people are like, but you defended Jones all year. I wanted Jones to work. I've heard great things, just as a person, and obviously athletic traits are there. But now that you have Valera and Delauder on the 40-man, he is, let's use the word, he's redundant. Yeah, he doesn't fit.
I wouldn't even call him redundant. I would just say his skills just don't work. Forget redundancy. It's just what you're looking for from him didn't happen, and move on from there. So and also a quick reminder, everybody too, there is no injured list in the offseason.
Yes.
So guys like Ben Lively or Sam Henches that are hurt, and David Fry or Will Brennan, guys that wouldn't start the year with them next year because of injuries. If they're still on the 40 this offseason, there's no injured list. They have to be on the 40. And the other thing, too, is we have to hear what's going to happen with the closer who will not be named and the pitcher who will not be named with them, too, because if they are...
2 more spots.
That, and they won't hear anything until after the World Series. Let's be clear about that, too, because the Major League Baseball is not going to announce the final result of their investigation during the MLB playoffs, so you can forget that. So the Guardians will not know about that until the end of October, early November.
And it'll probably be some space. They don't want that to eat up the airwaves after the World Series either, so it's going to be spaced out.
Which puts Cleveland in a kind of a hard position because if you need to keep 2 spaces open for them, because you can't have a restricted list in the offseason either. Like, even let's say even in the weird scheme of things,
you can. They're restricted until everything gets changed. They are.
Well, no, I mean, let's say the Guardians let's say those 2 are banned for a year from baseball. In the offseason, while they're banned, they don't count. They still count against your 40. They don't count. They don't stop counting against your 40 until the season starts because of...
No, they don't count against your 40 in the offseason. They stay off. If they're on the restricted list, they don't count.
If they're on the restricted list for being...
that's restricted list is restricted list, so it doesn't count.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. So if they are on the restricted list, then you don't have to worry about that. But yeah, there are a couple of guys that are going to come off. Like, you could easily see Will Wilson go, and don't forget Lane Thomas, Austin Hedges, Jacob Junis.
Well, yeah, those are the guys, that are already off.
Yeah. So the Guardians have a lot of room to play with, to be honest, in terms of who they need to add in the Rule 5, or I should say the 40-man roster. And this preempts, of course, all the stuff in the offseason. This is the first thing you do before anything else, so you know who you have on your roster. Like, you can still make trades and sign guys if you really want, but most people set the 40-man roster before anything really gets down to business. And you don't make your tender decisions either. Like, that's the time of year too where you're more likely to DFA a guy, not non-tender him. So we'll see what happens. And trades at deadline day. The Nolan Jones Juan Brito swap famously, and the other famous Tobias Myers trade that everybody loves so much. That was one that happened on Rule 5 or 40-man deadline day too. So don't forget that's also a possibility. But I would imagine the guys that are hurt, the Livelies, the Henches, Brennans, those guys, there's a good chance they get non-tendered and try to be brought back. I don't think they'll bring back Will Brennan, because what's the point? Unfortunately, as a former president of the Will Brennan fan club, and then Jones. So they have plenty of room to work with, which is good because they actually have, I think, a significant amount of players they need to add this year, whether they are must-adds or they are on the bubble. There's a couple of bubble guys you and I want to debate on the show that I think will be of interest to other teams that they want to keep, especially when it comes to key positions on this roster that they need to protect.
Yeah, agreed. And they've got some interesting players, including a top prospect, one of the best in the org, that they're going to need to add, and we'll have to dive into all those players and discuss. To me, like I said, one of the top prospects.
They already added Chase DeLauder, who would have.
They already added DeLauder and Messick, which made it a little bit easier. But maybe the biggest sleeper, and they're one of their more interesting hitters, are players that we'll get into in the next segment of the show, right?
Yeah, plenty of good arms too. I think arms people have not paid attention to that we'll want to talk about, and we know that pitchers are probably the biggest target when it comes to the Rule 5 draft too, because they're the easiest to stash when it comes to, Rule 5
bullpen.
Guys. Bullpen.
Long man,
just always bullpens. Yeah, and the Guardians have no shortage of those. I will say some interesting arms that could make the bullpen much more interesting in 2026. We'll jump into that next on today's Locked On Guardians.
But first, let's get my friend, the bone skeleton, the bone T-Rex, because what you get when you have a bald eagle standing on top of a silverback gorilla riding a T-Rex? Confidence, pure confidence. If you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougier Go Long. That's exactly where Rougier Go Long comes in. This isn't just another ED pill. It's a total game changer for confidence. Go Long combines 2 doctor-trusted medications into 1 dual-action formula, so you can get hard and go the distance. The effects can last up to 36 hours. That's confidence all day and night. So, ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom? Head to RUGIET.com. Use promo code LOCKEDONMLB for 15% off your first order. That's RUGIET.com. Promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Make sure to use our code so they know that we're sending you to Go Long.
Thank you for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day wherever you get podcasts. We appreciate all of our everydayers and even everybody else checking in throughout the offseason, whether you're catching up on old episodes or maybe you're new here. We appreciate all of you being here. The best way to always catch the shows and support us, which we would love, is to hit the bell on YouTube so you never miss an episode. You get notified as soon as one is going to premiere, or including any reaction videos we post to news in the off season, to get our quick takes on things before we can record a podcast, and then auto download an audio so you always get into your feed, and we are free wherever you get podcasts. All right, so we kind of set up how the 40-man works for those who maybe aren't familiar with the rules or how the proceduring works. Let's talk about who has to be added. So we talked about how the fact that DeLauder and Messick are on there, those were 2 guys that would have been part of this decision coming up here in the next couple of weeks, or I should say the next 8 weeks here. The very easy names to get out of the way, at least I think the one easy one, is Angel Genao.
Yeah,
that's a must add because he is, by far at the very least a top 3 prospect, I think, for everybody.
Yes.
Depending on where you prefer your prospect news from, but I think I have him number 2 behind Bazana right now still. So
I'm surprised by you. I thought for sure he'd be 3 for you. I got to be honest. I thought you'd have had Ralphie jump him. That's kind of my debate.
The only thing the only thing that's holding me back from doing that is
Position?
the fact that Ralphie only play. Yeah, it's positional. Yeah. It's first base only. Even though Ralphie's numbers are fantastic, Genao could be the whole package, and he plays shortstop. So that's what's holding me back, because the upside is too good, and there's more there that gives him a higher floor too. So that's really the only slam dunk now that DeLauder and Messick have been added. There are other guys that are interesting, but am I fair in saying that's the only slam dunk ad that you're like that's the first one you'll say no doubt? Everybody else can kind of be grouped into the same.
I don't know, especially with their history of valuing pitchers, and especially pitchers who have not had as many looks. I feel like DeLuca and Gomez are just guys who I would be shocked if they aren't added. Those are specifically the guys that, the stuff's been great, but they haven't had they're not willing to play around with, Oviedo in the past, right? The first time, and Salazar, and they've JC Mejia, they have added
Vargas.
some, they go and add guys who have, especially if they have like Gomez has good velocity too, and it's he's going to be super easy to stash. Same thing I think with DeLuca to a lesser degree. So, and I gotta be honest, if you don't protect Peterson, he's gone as well. So
yeah, he's too close to the majors where someone could easily add him and make him a starter.
Or just a long man with his command and his control.
Yeah, I think he's someone
easy
to hide.
To me, there's 4 guys you got to add, or I think you're going to lose any of them. So I have those 4.
I like DeLucia, and I've been saying he had a nice return last year. He wasn't quite as good this year in Akron. He had a good start for them, and he fell off a little bit, and he also had some elbow soreness. And this is a guy who's already had Tommy John, but he's had limited looks too, and he would also be a nice stash in someone's bullpen. So the only question really is how many guys can you realistically add to this group? I mean, because we know a couple things, like you said in the first segment. Cleveland's going to want to have roster fodder. They might make a trade. They're going to want to leave some spots open heading into the winter meeting. So you're not going to add 9 guys. That's the thing. So
no, that's what I said, 4.
We're saying, that's 4. But there are guys after that too that are part of this conversation. I'm excited. I will say, if I had to rank the 2, just Gomez and DeLucia, because I agree with you. Peterson, I feel like it'd be a mistake not to add Austin Peterson. He is got too good of control. I'd say he's a control over command guy. The command's fine, but the control is really the big thing for him. I think command is still a little below that. But the extension is something they like. He's got a really good 4 or 5 pitch mix. He could start or relieve. So I think that's a guy that'd be easy to stash. Someone can get a lot of value out of him. And the White Sox, that they've taken guys like that in the last couple of years, even though he doesn't have the velocity of a Shane Smith or a
everyone we've talked about is in the upper major or upper minors. They're all easy to
yes,
stash.
and those
are all easy.
yeah, and those guys become very valuable. But if I had to rank those 3 out of who I like the most, at least from future, and this might be recency bias, because coming into last offseason, we both were really high on Austin Peterson. And he took a couple hits at AAA. He didn't really take the next.
We always got to remember that AAA is hard to adjust to because of different baseball. It's the same thing where I worry about Jake Miller, who's one of those guys who was just dynamite in AA and struggled at that. Like it's a big transition.
It is, but the velocity for Peterson never jumped this year either. I was expecting maybe like a velo bump, and that didn't happen either. But Yormont Gomez, I think, is the most exciting out of this group in terms of future projection, because he's added velocity. Like now before he was like 91, 94. Now he's more like 93, 96 and can hit 98. He's a shorter guy. He's only 6 foot, but there's a great curveball there. He reminds me a little bit of Xavier Curry with a little more velo. Just that like there might not be a changeup in that arsenal, and he's shorter, so I don't know if he's going to be a starter. But he's a guy to me that I think says future reliever. I think DeLucia's a future reliever too. He's also a smaller guy who has a great fastball with some unique traits, and he has a good changeup. DeLucia reminds me of a shorter Hunter Gaddis. Like I don't know that I see DeLucia holding his stuff as a starter at the big league level, but he has a 3-pitch mix that I think could work out of the bullpen. That's very similar in shape to Hunter Gaddis. So those are the 4. So those are Genao, Gomez, Peterson, and DeLucia. Those are the guys I would say in some order there that you have to protect. There are other guys that are, on the bubble that we haven't really talked about. Like you mentioned, I'm sorry. You know what? There's a reliever I didn't mention that you didn't mention either that I think has to be protected actually. And there's an outfielder too we have to talk about.
Well, I like I said, we can debate if they have to be protected. I actually think what they did recently shows me they're not going to be protected.
Yeah, that's true. There's two outfielders and a reliever. You're right. There's 2 moves they've already made this offseason that probably suggest they're not going to protect that. We'll also give you some other names I think that you might have heard of before that you'll be interested to see. Are they going to protect this guy or are they not? And if other teams might be interested in. So we'll touch on that here in just a minute as we wrap up today's show. Who's on the bubble for the 40-man roster this offseason? That's coming up here on today's Locked On Guardians. Game Time. They are the place to make tickets buying to any event easier. We know there's nothing like catching a baseball game live, but if you live in Cleveland, that's just not going to happen until next April. So in the meantime, Cavs basketball is coming up. There are so many good comedy shows all the time coming to Cleveland. We know there's lots of concerts, surprisingly, coming up as well. I will be checking Game Time in November for Jonas Brothers tickets for my wife because she wants to go, and I'm going to go with her. And I always use Game Time because we want to wait till the last minute for the best deal on prices to get into the venue, and that's where you can find the deals on Game Time. Always deliver the best price, and your fees are always included, so you don't have to click on a ticket, add it to your shopping cart, get to checkout, and see, oh man, where did this extra service fee come from? Nope, it is all right there to tell you the final price on there, and it does nice things like shows you where your seats are located and what they look like, and it helps you find the best deals in the arena where you are buying your ticket. So download the Game Time app today. Create an account. You're going to use code LOCKEDONMLB. You're going to get $20 off your first purchase if you use that. Terms apply as always. But again, use promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your very first purchase. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. If you like what you're hearing and you want a little bit more, you can check out the opportunity to be an insider at joinsubtext.com/lockedonguardians. We had our first off-season chat with the insiders on Wednesday night. We talked about everyone's favorite subject, payroll, and the collective bargaining agreement. We talked about some stories that we can't tell on the air. Talked about, let's see what else, just free agency, all that kind of stuff. A lot of good deep stuff we get into on those chats. We'll probably do one once a month during the off season. Try to do one once a month during the year. We also are chatting with our insiders during games when news breaks. And then we also get mailbag questions. So if you want to be part of that, check out joinsubtext.com/locked-on Guardians. All right, so let's start with this other guy here, Jeff, that has not been already part of a transaction this offseason. There are two guys that were part of the transaction already for Cleveland this offseason. Jeff doesn't know who they are because he's not. That's why he's muted himself. Because
as I say, the one that everyone's asking about, right? Like that.
Yes, this is the one I think is a really interesting inflection point, and that's Kahlil Watson. Kahlil Watson is obviously a very talented guy. There's a lot of upside there. This club does need outfielders. Let's be honest. They need outfielders who have power, who have speed, who can play defense. They need 5-2 outfielders. Is Kahlil Watson a 5-tool player?
No, he doesn't have the contact rate to be a 5-tool player.
Yes, correct. He does not have the contact to be a 5-tool player, but the power is there.
Yeah, I mean the tools are good.
There, yeah, the tools are good. Power, speed. I say Cleveland has to roster him only for the fact that I would prefer that you use him, you keep him. Maybe there's still the ability to trade him in the offseason if there's anything left there as an asset. I don't know that he necessarily fits if you've got Petey Halpin and Chase DeLauder and George Valera and you're trying to maybe add an external option to this outfield. But I would prefer Cleveland add him just for the fact that I think someone would take him. I really do. And that's part of the calculus in these decisions too, is you got to think about who you like, but also who stands to be selected in the draft. And there's an outfielder they signed to a minor league deal who we'll get to in a second that leaves a spot open. And I would just prefer not to let Watson get picked in the draft. And I wouldn't be surprised if someone did if they left him unprotected.
I think the other side to Watson, the reason I'm not quite as bullish is one, teams still have size biases. Like that's there. Two, his contact rates are pretty abysmal. Like there's a lot of teams who are going to look at the zone contact and the swinging strike and the chase and the whiff. And this organization in particular, like if you're having exceptionally hard times with contact in AAA, we know it's not great. But I mean, the rest of a lot of the other data is strong. And then he was an extremely talented player who the Guardians got on the cheap because of character concerns. And you and I have talked about on the show, it's like we keep getting minor reports here and there, things where he just can't get out of his own way. And he still kind of runs into things at points. Nothing huge, but like you were hoping maturity would lead to some better decisions at points. And it's not huge things. It's not big things, but when you already had
they used to be.
No, when you came in with 2 strikes to an organization after another organization wanted you gone. Like, let's be honest. Like that, the Marlins were ready to move on. You just think you'd be on your best behavior, and that again, it's not big stuff, but when you keep hearing small little things here or there, things that just are rubbing people the wrong way, statements that maybe shouldn't get made in public, things like that. It's just not a great look, and everyone knows. Like baseball, if you spend any time like scouting at all, like you'll know that like scouts love to talk. If you spend any time with anyone in the front office, they love to talk. That is, it's like everyone knows everyone else's business. He's really talented. I'm not opposed, like especially if they protect 5 guys, let's say, that would mean you're adding Noel and Rodriguez and Allard, and I can't remember who our fourth was. No, if you're holding on to them. So if you're keeping our 5,
I see. Okay,
because then that takes you up to 35. So if you're keeping our 5, maybe the 4 maybes, or the 4 like, and then I guess Henches is the 4th one. If you're keeping those guys, you have 5 open spots. Then I say add all 5, and then you could still make that trade with some of these other guys. Or you can, you still have Rodriguez and Noel right there. You can cut. Like it's not the biggest deal. I mean, Petey Halpin, I like him a lot, but I think he would probably pass through waivers. Let's be honest. With the year he had in AAA, it was, great defense, great speed, but like guys aren't going to jump for, a speed defense outfielder. That's not what Gate gets
I mean,
claimed.
that is a player that can stick on a 40 though, or stick on a roster.
But everyone has that.
Backup.
Everyone has that in their org already. Like,
But somebody could also grab him. Are you talking about a waiver claim or a Rule 5?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a good chance as a 40-man spot that he passes clean, because it was a really bad year statistically.
Yeah, he could be roster fodder for somebody else. Like that's
my point. He's roster fodder right now. Like he
right,
is,
but I think he would get picked up on waivers because he could be somebody else's roster fodder. I don't think he gets through waivers.
Everyone has a guy like Petey Halpin. Every team already has that guy. Like, I mean, or 3 or 4 of them. Baseball has gotten so much better about getting athletes and getting guys up and down through systems. The defense is a separator, don't get me wrong. But like,
I think it depends on the timing when you do it. And
teams also aren't jumping to claim guys for defense first, who with limited options. Like that's, it's a debate for another day though. But either way, it's like 3 to 4 guys, even from our, like, hey, if they go max protect, they could still be roster fodder pieces. And, there's always trades to be figured out potentially as well. But right now that would give them the ability to add the 4 we mentioned and Watson would be my 5th, honestly, at this point in time.
Yeah. I mean, the character concerns, at least in terms of what happened in Cleveland, as far as what we heard this year, we're not major enough to me to not protect him. Like, I think it's not like it's
a continuous pattern. A continuous pattern is a concern.
He's not such a big headache that it outweighs the talent. So I'm not, I would still do that considering the fact that he might be valuable to you as like a 3rd or 4th piece in a trade, depending on what you do. And I'd just be willing to let him sit the minors in the 40 and see what happens this year, rather than let somebody else take him and also get that chance with him, because I wouldn't want to miss out.
I think he's so hard to actually make a roster, because he hasn't really established himself at a position. Like, he's actually the guy you can make the case for, like, is going to be the hardest guy to roster of the 5 we've talked about by far. Like, because
if I was the Rockies or the Angels, I'd take a shot on him.
They're
terrible.
The Angels don't take anyone in the Rule 5. They're under extreme pressure. The Rockies maybe with new support there, but teams also, like, it's so hard to work on swing decisions. I don't know how many teams are going to take a guy who has that bad swing decisions.
Right, but it costs you nothing. Like that for a Rockies team, it costs nothing. Like you're not.
But it costs you the ability to take someone else earlier with other skills, right?
Yeah, we don't know who is available. We're just going off of Cleveland. We don't know who else is going to be available. So yeah, I think he's on the bubble for sure. The 2 guys that they did not add yet, or they seemingly will not add, are outfielder Wilfredo Antunez, who had a home run in his first at bat at the Arizona Fall League on Tuesday night, and then left-handed reliever Steven Perez. So they went out and they signed those guys to minor league free agent deals, because those 2 would have been minor league free agents. So they got those guys wrapped up and signed. However, those 2 guys can both be selected in the Rule 5 draft if they're not added. I think Cleveland could still add them.
They did the same thing with Valera last year.
Yes, Valera was on the 40 though. Remember, these 2 guys were not. Valera was previously on the 40.
But remember, they let Valera go. He was a free agent, and then they brought him.
He was, but
basically the same situation in the end.
But he was on the 40, whereas these guys were already not on the 40. So it's a little bit different. I could still see them protecting one of them because they are still eligible. If I would pick one of them, it would be Perez. And I actually think Steven Perez is the guy I would protect up there with DeLucia and Gomez. I think Perez is really good. Now, he hasn't been to AAA yet, but neither has DeLucia or Gomez, so we just don't know. You can only protect so many. Perez is really interesting. He throws into the mid-90s. He's got a good slider. He's undersized, but he's also left-handed. This team has not a lot of relief prospects in the minors, especially left-handers, so I would strongly consider protecting Perez, only for the fact that he's a lefty with velocity and a good breaking ball, who, again, haven't seen him above AA yet. But that's another guy that is easy to stash on a roster. Like, every team wants a left-handed reliever, and bad teams can stash those guys very easily. For Antunez, real quickly, I'll say this. I would not protect him. I know a lot of people think he's got good power, and I think he does. Unfortunately, Antunez, his approach reminds me a lot of Oscar Gonzalez. There is power there. He's got a great arm. He's not a great defender. He's got some speed. But the approach reminds me a lot of Oscar Gonzalez, so it's not a guy I would move to protect at this point as Antunez, especially with the discussion we just had. If you're going to pick between Watson and Antunez, it's got to be Watson.
I don't see a pathway to protecting either because they would have just added them. This was they re-signed them kind of preemptively instead of them becoming free agents. If they were going to put them on the 40-man, you just do that, and then you don't have to do the.
Well, they could have declared. Well, they don't have it. But they don't have a 40-man spot right now, and they can't make room. You can't make any moves right now, so they didn't have the spots to do it.
Yeah, but they could have done it during the season. Like if you know this is upcoming, you know this is someone you are going to look to add. You don't play the game where he could have walked.
They didn't have this. But they didn't want to waste.
You could have easily, but you could if you like a guy enough to add him, you're not going to play a little game now and extend him here. And then
those aren't guys that you would have played this year. Those are not guys you would have brought up this year.
Then if you like him enough to protect them, you're not going to let them walk. Like they risked letting a guy walk. They were going to be minor league free agents. If they liked him enough, they had fodder. Like we talked about right now, you cut Will Wilson, you add Steven Perez, so you don't even have to play the game. Like the fact that they're entertaining this to me means I would put it at a 0% for both. I think neither get added.
I disagree. I think there's still a chance, especially for Perez. I think given what we've seen them do in the past, I would not be surprised.
I've never seen them do that where they have done the extension.
They've done the extension. It was more about timing.
Typically they pre-plan that better. Like that's if it's a guy they want. That's my issue.
They were in the playoffs and they were out of roster spots. So I could see.
You got Will Wilson. You got Matt Crook. They had so many guys who weren't even near the roster that if you really like a guy, why play? And then again, I just want to quickly running out of time. Jake Miller. He was awesome in Double-A Akron. He looked like potentially the best reliever prospect in the system. And then the AAA thing. And we've talked about a lot of guys. Logan Allen was one who always comes to mind. You get the AAA, and it can be really hard. It's a different ball. It's the Major League Baseball. It's a slipperier ball. I don't know if he gets grabbed or not. I don't know what the risk is. He's an interesting prospect and someone you definitely want to pay attention to. And then I just like to say the name Magnus Ellerts. I was really high on him coming in the year. Didn't have a great year. I don't think he gets selected, nor is he someone you need to worry about. But when you get a chance to say the name Magnus, you say Magnus.
Yeah. And by the way, Trevor Stephan is Rule 5 eligible. If somebody wants to take him, Tristan McKenzie opted for minor league free agency, so he'll go wherever he wants, whoever wants him. And I know a lot of people are going to ask about Milan Tolentino, but he strikes out a ton.
Less than Watson.
Yeah, I guess the same amount of power probably. So, yeah. All right, let us know if you have any questions about the 40-man roster, how Rule 5 works. Jeff will respond in the comments, or we'll bring it up on a future episode of the show. We've gotten a lot of comments asking us for different segments on the show coming up, so we'll get to all those tomorrow. Jeff, do you want to do a mailbag to round out the week?
Sounds good.
All right, so there you go. Mailbag Friday. We'll check it out. All right, come back and we'll answer some questions heading into the weekend.
Thank you all, and go Guardians, go.